Welcome back to Union Smack. I am, of course, the Maniac Matt Tennant in the chair once again. And because real life sucks, Travis couldn't be with us in person this week, so we've decided for this week only, fingers crossed, that we will do this a little differently. Travis will be here a bit later on. He will be reviewing episode 10 of NXT UK for you, and then it'll just be us, just you and me, reviewing episode 11, episode 12, and that will catch us up. That will catch us up with what the WWE Network have shown, and we'll be right on track again. So, before that, you can catch me on Twitter, at The Perfect Tenant. You can catch Travis on Twitter, at The Habiki TMD. You can buy our official merchandise, the official Union Smack shirt, the official Habiki TMD shirt at unionsmack.bigcartel.com. And finally, after so much hype, after so long waiting, it feels like a fucking eternity, you can buy my book, The Undertaker, A Trip Down Death Valley, from completelynovel.com, from amazon.com or .co.uk, depending where you are in the world. And it should be available on our store very shortly. Prices will differ depending on where you get it from, so search the best bargain. And who knows, after Christmas we might do a giveaway. So yeah, if you could pick that up, it would be appreciated. We will start this week, as we start every week. It's become a little format now with the news. There's not so much NXT UK news this week as there was last week, because we had the big reveal of Takeover last week, and which I'm not going to stop bragging about. So there's not as much. There is some. First on the agenda is Progress. I know there's a lot of fans of Progress who listen to this podcast. This week, Progress announced 2 massive matches for their upcoming Chapter 80 and Chapter 81 events, which will take place on December the 8th and December the 9th. It's a two-night event with different titles. And by the time you hear this might have already happened, so we will fill you in on the next episode, if anything vital happens. But they announced that for Chapter 80, Gods and Monsters, on December the 8th, which is Saturday, it will be Tyler Bate versus Ilya Dragunov. If I have got that pronunciation wrong, I'm sure Travis or JD will shout at me on Twitter later. Obvious match of the year contender. If anyone's ever seen Dragunov, wonderful, wonderful athlete. Of course, everyone knows Tyler Bate if you watch WWE, and I can't wait to watch it. I have this weekend officially subscribed to Progress on Demand after talking about it for way too long. So I can't wait to delve into the past, things I haven't seen, watch things I have seen. Just, it's so much better than WWE these days. So yeah, do have a look at that if you want an alternative. And of course, for Sunday, December the 9th, Chapter 81, pour some Progress on me. God knows where they get these titles from. Progress have announced Toni Storm versus Jordynne Grace, and Travis is a massive fan of Jordynne Grace. I'm a massive fan of Toni Storm. This is going to bring the house down. And again, something else I cannot wait to watch. Next, we move to a sort of update of some news from last week. If you listened to last week's show, then you will have heard NXT UK have put some regulations into place for those contracted to the brand. Now, these regulations, they say that NXT UK stars can no longer wrestle for any other independent promotion that isn't affiliated with WWE. So, WXW, Evolve, Progress, ICW, those types of companies, they can still book NXT UK stars, but other places, it's a no-go. This week, NXT UK stars have officially been pulled from indie shows. They're the first lot, more will follow, but Johnny Saint is the first one. NXT UK General Manager Johnny Saint, who wasn't even going to wrestle on this event I'm about to mention, was pulled from it and then reinstated to it because of his contractual obligations to NXT UK, which makes no sense because as WWE were describing it when the news broke, it was active members of the roster who could get injured on other shows and who fans would pay a pittance, if you like, to see on the indies, rather than spend a ridiculous amount of money on an NXT UK ticket. But Johnny Saint is the latest casualty of this. He was pulled from a Full Tilt wrestling seminar in Newcastle upon Tyne on December the 15th. Now, as I said, he wasn't going to wrestle, even though he still could. But they pulled him for no reason whatsoever. So Full Tilt Wrestling got in contact with WWE, and they decided, because Johnny Saint agreed to do the event before his new contract was signed and before the regulations came into place, that yes, he could go ahead. They granted him special permission and he could go ahead. So if you have tickets to that event on December the 15th in Newcastle, then worry not, Johnny Saint will still appear, unlike Travis Banks, sadly. The Kiwi Buzzsaw was booked to compete for Frontline Wrestling, which is owned by Will Ospreay, the great Will Ospreay. He was booked as one of the participants in their J1 League tournament, but now he's had to pull out. Several other UK stars have also pulled out. The others were not contracted to NXT UK, but Travis Banks is, and now Frontline Wrestling are eagerly searching a replacement. This news broke a few days ago. I've not heard anything on a replacement, so if you are attending that event, then please get in contact with us on Twitter. Would be very interested to know who turns up on the night. Next, WWE have made a rather surprising signing. If you've seen New Japan Pro Wrestling or Melbourne City Wrestling, or even this year's Pro Wrestling Guerrilla Battle of Los Angeles, you'll know the name Jonah Rock. Jonah is a big man. He's a Lars Sullivan, Jeff Cobb type of build. And WWE have signed him. It's official. He's expected to begin in January. But the reason I'm including this here is because, as of yet, no one knows which brand he's going to. Heavy speculation he's going to NXT regular. There is some rumour, however, that he will follow in the footsteps of Walter, of all people, and sign for NXT UK. Now, he wouldn't be the first Australian to do so. Tony Storm, Rhea Ripley, etc. I'm sure one of them is probably from New Zealand, or I might be thinking of Dakota Kai. I should have wrote it down. It took 2 minutes, but I didn't. If you've never seen Jonah Rock in action, I suggest you do so. You can find some of his matches on Twitter. They're well worth the watch, especially his bouts against Minoru Suzuki and Tetsuya Naito, both from different promotions. One was from the New Japan tour of the UK in February of this year. It's a cracker, so go and look that up on YouTube when you've got time. He's known as the King of Monsters, and WWE discovered him at this year's Battle of Los Angeles, which they scout heavily every year for talent. It'll be interesting to see when he comes in, where he comes in, where he fits in. If it's regular NXT, whether he takes a Keith Lee role and just slowly builds up after several weeks or months of exposure against enhancement talent, or whether NXT or NXT UK throw him into the deep end. I would love to see him versus Walter. It'll be a great big man battle. But apart from that, we will keep you updated if we have any more news, or even when Jonah Rock just appears somewhere. There's every chance, just like Walter, that he could turn up at NXT UK TakeOver Blackpool in the audience. I wouldn't put it past them. Last on the news agenda is a little bit of sad news. We haven't had any really sad news on Union Smack for a while. And this time, it's a retirement, at least a rumoured retirement. And that is, of course, Rhino. Now, this has nothing to do with NXT UK, but being a veteran wrestling fan, or a fan of the golden era of wrestling, whatever you prefer to call it, Rhino, I was a massive fan of Rhino. I know Travis enjoyed his work in ECW as well. His early days in WWE were very, very good indeed. But sadly, alas, he is no more. If you watched Monday Night Raw this past week, I know thousands upon thousands didn't, and why would you? It's utter horseshit. Rhino lost a 60-second match to tag team partner Heath Slater, and that was it for him. Done. A 24-year career, done. In under a minute. Utterly disgusting. He cut a interview after the match stating that was it. He was retiring from the business. Now, a lot of people have said he won't retire, he'll go to SmackDown Live, etc. It's quite possible. It's quite possible by the time you hear this news is dated and he's already on SmackDown Live. However, he's really had his time in professional wrestling. He's held the ECW Heavyweight Championship, NWA World Heavyweight Championship, countless other titles, 31 in total, I counted. And there really is no place for him in the modern day business. He's never going to be a world champion again, maybe of a small-time indie company. You know, Kevin Nash, I think he recently won the world title for Big Time Wrestling. But apart from that, there's no place for a Rhino anymore. And it's sad, but things move on. It was a disrespectful send-off. It was a disgusting way to handle it after everything he's done. Let's not forget, out of a 24-year career, though he's had fits and starts, 17 of those years, on and off, he's been other places in between, have been spent with WWE. And they summed up that loyalty, if you like, or that time with a 60-second loss to a man no one cares about anymore. So, shame on WWE, when this could have been built as a one-time story for a pay-per-view, if you like. No one would have minded. Rhino's a legend. So, I think WWE should hang their heads in shame. But then that could be said about the majority of programming they put out now where the main roster is concerned. That's it for the news this week. Now, this is where our new format kicks in. I am going to, in just a minute, throw to good friend of the show and current WWE United Kingdom champion Pete Dunne. When we come back, you will have the pleasure of Travis running you through NXT UK episode 10. And then I'll be back. I'll be back in a very short while to give you the lowdown on episode 11, on episode 12, catch us up, get us ready for next week. Bing bong bash, done. So, without further ado, here is the Bruiserweight himself, and I will see you all on the other side with two huge episodes, two humongous main events. So, stick around, the goodness is still to come.
I'm the Bruiserweight Pete Dunne, and you're listening to the Union Smack podcast.
Either my co-host Matt smoked about 10 packs of cigarettes within the past 2 minutes and his voice has dropped dramatically, or I'm here and I snuck in, made the hot tag. What's going on, guys? Travis here. Doing a little different like Matt said at the beginning of this episode, mixing it up, real life stuff came into play once again. I'm here to give you your official NXT UK episode 10 review. I will do my best. I haven't done anything solo without solely editing the hell out of it like a game review or something, and God knows how long, but I'll do my best Solid Monster impersonation right here. Real quick, Matt probably already said it, but I'll say it again. Follow me on Twitter at TheBigTMD. Hit that subscribe down below if you haven't already for the best in retro gaming and pro wrestling goodness. Other than that, once again this week, NXT takes us to Birmingham, England. Vic Joseph, Nigel McGuinness, and introduce everyone this week's episode. Kicking off with a recap of the women's tournament to crown the first ever UK women's champ. This week, semi-final action. We got Dakota Kai taking on Rhea Ripley, and in the main event later, Jenny and Toni Storm. Both of these matches, I'll flat out say they were very good. Rhea Ripley and Dakota Kai. This may be the best Rhea Ripley match I've seen in WWE NXT UK so far. I think for once, and we said it on last episode, I think the main thing that just irks me when Dakota Kai is out there is her main gimmick, her main repertoire are kicks. She's team kick and all that stuff, but her finisher, the chiropractor, it isn't a kick. It's a weird back cracker thing, and I don't know, it just doesn't fit her character. And that was one of her gripes. I feel like a kick should be her finisher. It would only make sense. We saw a ton of kicks in this match from Dakota Kai. Borderline, I want to say Dakota Kai pretty much steered the ship and dominated the match for the most part. I think this was more of a case of finally we see Rhea Ripley in there take and absorb a hell of a lot of punishment. Dakota Kai gave her everything she had. This was definitely Rhea Ripley's biggest test. But in the end, Rhea Ripley, she overcome. She did it. The Riptide, Rhea Ripley's finisher real quick. It's like a pump handle sit down slam thing. As a finisher, maybe she just needs to maybe the impact. And I know the age we're in today with safeness and concussions, maybe, but the impact I don't feel like is as sudden and as strong as it should be for that to be. It's a nice setup move, but I feel like Rhea Ripley also needs her finisher tweaked in there. But very good match. Like I said, I recommend it. There's been much worse in the last weeks. Not the best women's match in NXT UK so far, but one of them. And like I said, later to come, Jenny and Toni Storm, the main event this week. From here, that took us to Sid Scala backstage, which is basically NXT UK's version of James Ellsworth, I guess. Maybe. I know that's not who you want to be compared to as a late. I'm just saying character-wise, so calm down, everyone. But Sid Scala, or Scala, however you say it, personally, I think he's way better than James Ellsworth. In-ring, the look, he kind of looks like tiny Pee Wee Herman, a fighting Pee Wee Herman, but in a good way. Like, you want to get behind him. Here, we see him leaving GM Johnny Saint's office, stopped by our favorite announcer, Radzi. Sid Scala informs Radzi that he went to Johnny Saint and straight up requested and asked him to have Joe Coffey as his opponent in 2 weeks. And so it is official, match graphic and everything. Joe Coffey takes on Sid Scala. It's going to be a squash match. I haven't even seen the spoiler for it, but it's going to be. But hopefully it's entertaining, but yeah, that's something to look forward to, I guess. Obviously, bigger things are coming for Joe Coffey. There's no reason he shouldn't just steamroll Sid Scala here. But no, this was what it was. This wasn't entertaining. This wasn't bad. This was just literally a little skit. We'll see. When we came back from break, here's something now I can dig my hands into. Here's something I both liked and disliked at the same time. Back we're with Radzi once again, this time joined by Jordan Devlin. Jordan tells Radzi that by defeating Ligero, he has cemented himself as the #1 contender for the UK title. Then he also went on to say that when he becomes champ, he's going to rename NXT UK NXT Ireland, which I like this. I like this England versus Ireland type deal they could go with here if this had time and then let this play out and build it up. Here's the part I don't like. This match happens in like a week or two, and that's it for now. So it's like a week or two build. By the end of this episode, it will be announced that these two are going to have a match on episode 11. So yeah, and you guys that have listened, and Matt especially knows how big of a Jordan Devlin fan I am. A lot of people have compared him to Jamie Noble, just his look and stuff. I see Finn Balor, and it's so weird that he was trained by Finn Balor. He looks just like Finn Balor, pretty much. I see Finn Balor way more. I guess I see the Noble comparisons in a way, but Jamie Noble was really good and underrated, but Jordan Devlin's on another level. I'm sorry. He should be one of the top heels right now. Joe Coffey's fine. I have no problem with the Joe Coffey being in there. Zach Gibson again. But I just feel like that to do it in a week it is totally rushed. I mean, I know they needed shit to fill their TV block, but you could have. I would have just assumed have a thrown together match for Pete Dunne on the next episode. With somebody not quite on the level of Jordan Devlin, but something to showcase Pete Dunne more for those that never saw him in Takeover, or that this is a brand new show too. People are going to be seeing these guys for the first time. I don't know who would jump in at episode 10. Usually you'd want to start somewhere around the beginning, but just in case, it's okay to have a champ or a strong babyface go out there sometimes with a mid card guy or a lower mid card guy. Have the lower mid card guy get his shit in and look like he could somewhat compete. That's the beauty of that, to build the mid card guy. But at the end of the day, you keep your champ strong. He doesn't have to be in there with a Danny Burch every week, a Jordan Devlin, some Noam Dar, which Burch and Noam Dar were fantastic matches. I expected nonetheless from Devlin and Dunn, and their match was really good. It sucks that I'm not going to be on there after the break to review it with Matt, but I'm sure Matt will tell you all about it. But once again, don't mean to be long winded on it, but maybe it's the mark in me coming out for Jordan Devlin, but just expected. I expected to just them to build him more right now, kind of what they're doing with Eddie Dennis, but not as like a strong of a heel, but just high profile matches over guys like Ligero and blah blah blah, and then he challenges Pete. Like, let's say Pete Dunne successfully defends the title in a month at Takeover against blank, because I'm not going to say the spoiler. After the match, Pete Dunne successful. Here comes Jordan Devlin, who attacks him out of nowhere, unannounced. He wasn't even on the card. I think that would have gone over way more without a hitch, but this is what they did, and at least we'll get a good match out of it, I guess. One of the good things we talk about how big the talent pool is on this brand is there's lots of guys that Pete Dunne can still go out there with and have good matches and programs, so I can't be too bummed out, I guess. Up next, following their stare down previous week or two ago, Tyson T-Bone finally takes on Bomber Dave Mastiff. I got to be honest, man, and you know what? I'll come clean again. I do like Tyson T-Bone. Come at me. I like Dave Mastiff too. Saw some reviews and some just people online on social media tweeting about this match, saying that they liked it. They liked how it was kind of what I was talking about Rhea Ripley earlier with Dakota Kai. It was in a way to show that Dave Mastiff could absorb so much punishment and blah blah blah. The difference is in that for me in the Dakota Kai Rhea Ripley match, when the babyface was getting her shit in and Rhea Ripley was absorbing the punishment, it was entertaining. It was fast paced. It still had somewhat of a competitive feel to it. This was slow and fucking 1986, dull as dishwater. This was punch, kick, headlock for the first part of it. Towards the end, it picked up a bit. And finally, Dave Mastiff, he took it all, got some of his stuff in, but finally got his running senton corner splash in, and that was it. And man, it looks nasty, and the finish looks great. I like the finish because God, it would steamroll anybody. But my God, this match was slow. Maybe Matt disagrees. Maybe you guys disagree, but I don't know what everybody was seeing in this. I know this was surprisingly. I feel like the spotlight was put more on Tyson Tebow and the Dave Mastiff in this because Dave Mastiff kind of looked like a putz. Dave Mastiff came off as a guy in this to me that talks a bunch of shit and blah blah blah, and he's supposed to be this big bad guy. But at the end of the day, he just got his ass beat for the most part and put in headlocks and just worn down and looked blown up, even though he won. When the complete opposite earlier, Rhea Ripley looked like none of that when she finally got the win and came back. So that was the difference in those two matches: the absorbing punishment trick, the technique to booking a match. Yeah, maybe if Dave Mastiff was a heel, then this would have made his character look better, but it just made him look dumb as fuck. And finally, rounding off the episode, that brought us to the main event. On episode 10, Jenny takes on Toni Storm, the other semifinal match in the women's tournament to crown the first ever NXT Women's Champ. Man, my thoughts on this match. Now, I know these two have a pretty storied history and progress and over there, but I've seen like two matches maybe. If this match is a taste of what and I'm sure they're given way more time over there in their matches, and they were from the ones I've seen. Man, this was good. This was good. If people, and I do, for the most part, I do consider NXT UK a filtered, watered down progress. But man, this match didn't feel like that. The crowd was into it. For a crowd that sat through a night or two of some long ass tapings, this crowd was right back in it. Jenny definitely delivered on her end too. I'm pretty sure Matt's not the biggest Jenny fan. I think she's great. I think she plays the bitch posh Victoria Beckham character well. She's got a great look. Obviously, she can go in the ring. The story though in the match is that throughout the whole tournament, Jenny was just knocking women out with her rolling Liger kick. And she knocked out Miller McKenzie, got the pin with it. And she nailed it here, clean as day on Toni Storm. But Toni Storm was the first to kick out so far in NXT UK. Jenny looked shocked. The crowd, and that was built well, I feel like, because it got the crowd too. But after that, some more back and forth with Jenny and Toni Storm. Some big reactions here for some certain high spots. Toni Storm, man, I mean, I know we give her a bunch of shit for her facial expressions. She definitely toned down the goofy facial expressions in this match. Much more serious. We didn't address last week either that she does have new. They've given her like 3 themes now, but I think the one she finally has now is good. And the Tron now, they actually shows her name at first when it pops up. It doesn't leave the crowd wondering like who the fuck's coming out, so she gets an instant pop reaction. Toni Storm nails Storm Zero, aka the Pearl River Plunge for the win. And that was that. Toni Storm advances into the finals against Rhea Ripley in the coming weeks to crown the first ever champ. A key thing throughout this whole tournament, by the way, that we failed to mention also. After every match, the victor, when they made their way up the ramp, the women's belt will be sitting there on a little table with like a black tablecloth on it, presented out there with like a spotlight on it. And every woman would stop by the belt and like rub it or kiss it for good luck before they exited. This was no different here with Toni Storm. She went to do that again, posed by the belt. Out comes Johnny Saint to congratulate her like he did in the Rhea Ripley match. Comes out, shakes Toni Storm's hand, says a word or two to her. Here comes Rhea Ripley, though, this time. The first time we've seen someone interrupted up there by the belt throughout this tournament. Doing her standard Rhea Ripley cocky stances and mocking and blah blah blah, and all of a sudden she hits her, she clocks her, and a little pull apart here, and that was that. Toni Storm laid out on her behind there to close the show, and that was that. That was this week's NXT UK episode 10. Another good episode. I totally would give this show finally first A in a while for me. I'll give it a solid A. I feel like both women's matches totally delivered. It was the best we've seen from Jenny so far. It was the best we've seen from Rhea Ripley so far. Dakota Kai was more logically booked with her moves, like I said earlier in the segment. And Toni Storm, of course, looking strong then, as she should. And only fitting that it would come down to Rhea Ripley and Toni Storm, as the final. No other women are really on their level right now, and we say that all the time. And that's a key thing throughout this. In both title pictures, no one's really on Pete Dunne's level either, to be flat. As good as strong heels they have for the men, still, I feel like until Walter does come in, that's the guy. Still, I'm sticking to my guns. Walter's going to be the one to take it because he's the only guy on that level right now on that brand. There's a couple guys they haven't signed, like Dragunov, I feel like is on that level. And Tyler Bate could be if they booked him here like they do in other promotions over there, but they're not doing that. So that's it. That's it for me. Once again, guys, sorry for the mishap again. Real life does call, but it's kind of like we're doing this weird via satellite thing. I feel like a crazy person talking to myself for the past half hour or however long. But hey, it was fun to do. Hopefully for next week, episode 13 review, we will be back in full force, Matt and I together. Until then, one more time, follow me on Twitter at @TheBiggyTMD. Let's take it to a break. When we come back, Matt rounds it off and takes it home. A doubleheader, episodes 11 and 12 review right here. Slam Pigs Union Smack. Cheerio, mates.
I've been doing these puzzles all day, but I'm gonna watch a Vicky TMD.
Welcome back once again to Union Smack. I am the Maniac Matt Tennant, and can I just take a few seconds to thank Travis for taking time out of a hectic week to save my voice and to save you listening to me droning on for 3 episodes. He was on the ball as always, and fingers crossed he'll be back with us next week, disagreeing with everything I say. So, NXT UK episode 11, without further ado, let's get into it, because this one was a doozy, at least the main event was. And of course, episode 12, which is still to come, crowns a new, inaugural, first ever, whatever you prefer to call her, NXT UK Women's Champion. So, let's do it. Episode 11 kicked off with Xia Brookside and Millie McKenzie, Be Still My Beating Heart, against Charlie Morgan and Killer Kelly. And can I just say, before this match started, I'd forgot Charlie Morgan even existed. at least in NXT UK. We haven't seen her since the second annual tournament. No one's mentioned her, and she's just one of them people who is very, very forgettable. Millie McKenzie, on the other hand, is the polar opposite of that. Even though this is only her second match in the company, so popular, and you just know that at some point she's going to be the Cinderella story. And just to break away from the action for a minute, if you do hear a bumper thud, a jingling, then that's my cat, who seems to always come to life when I begin recording, whether it's solo or with Travis. He somehow knows. Anyway, back to the point. Millie McKenzie is going to be NXT UK Cinderella story. You can see it coming a mile off. She's so popular. She's going to be the underdog that you love, the underdog that you want to cheer for, the underdog that you want to pay your money to see. She's going to claw and fight and scratch and scream her way to the top, and no one's going to stop her. And you know what? No one should even bother, because we all love her, and I can't wait to see more of her. Take that how you will. Xia Brookside is a little firecracker. Her and Millie make a great team. I will say, in Charlie Morgan's defence, and I know I've flitted a bit here between subjects, but as much as I'd forgot about her, athleticism-wise, brilliant. You know, she needs to be more exposed. She needs more matches. I think Charlie Morgan could be something decent if she was given the investment. But of course, when you've got a women's division that is absolutely stacked to the rafters with talent, and obviously Toni Storm and Rhea Ripley are going to be the two main focuses of the division for, you know, the next few months, people like Charlie Morgan aren't going to get a look in, which is sad. However, down the line somewhere, maybe. As for the match itself, really good match. Enjoyed it very much, and not just because I'm biased. The tag to Millie, huge chance, massive reception when she finally got in. Killer Kelly, she's been mentioned a lot on this podcast over the course of several months, in fact. Weak booking, weak performances, and it didn't get any better here. She looked slow. She looked like her usual self had gone. It's a weird thing to witness, especially if you've seen her in WXW and Progress, where she's fabulous. It's almost like the reverse Killer Kelly is what we've got in NXT UK. And I don't know why. I don't know whether she's not bothered because it's obviously not going to use her. But she needs to up her game here because she doesn't look anything special. And I'm not the tiniest bit interested in her as an NXT UK performer. For all I care right now, Killer Kelly could not be signed and it wouldn't make any difference to the brand, which is a shame. The most exciting part of this match were the Xia Brookside versus Charlie Morgan parts. They sparkled. The Millie McKenzie versus Killer Kelly parts were fine, but they were nothing hugely special, which is a shame. The match ended with a Millie McKenzie spear on Charlie Morgan, and Xia Brookside pinned her to get the victory. Like I say, good match, highlighted everyone involved. I think it separated and drove a clearer wedge between British Strong Style, which she's not part of it on NXT UK at the minute, but she is on the Indies, so fuck it, I'm going to count her as part of them. It separated British Strong Style from the rest of the roster, which, you know, the divide has become noticeable. Bate, Seven, Dunn, and now Millie McKenzie are just, they're running away with it, and the rest of the roster are struggling to keep up. And I hope it continues because they all deserve all the success that's coming to them. Next up, we had Ashton Smith versus Eddie Dennis. Now, we might have got a promo between the tag match and this match. I just didn't write it down. My list consists of just matches. I don't think there's one promo in this episode that I wrote down. One interview with Radzi, fucking bloke, if there was one. So we will move this swiftly along because you're busy people and you've all got homes to go to. Ashton Smith versus Eddie Dennis, and I was surprised by this because Ashton Smith has had a lot of exposure in the past few weeks in his storylines with Gallus, as they're now called, main eventing the episode twice in a space of 2 weeks. Yet he came out here to almost cricket, and I say that not horribly. It's like no one seemed to care, apart from a smattering of the whoops that the crowd do when Ashton Smith comes out. I felt like it was just a crowd who'd been sat there for way too long and didn't care anymore. And Eddie Dennis got the same treatment when he came out. Very, very little reaction, and it was very odd because they've built Eddie Dennis up perfectly in my eyes. I know Travis would say the same thing. He doesn't like his ring gear, but I know he likes Eddie Dennis. So this was very, very strange. I'm going to put it down to a jaded audience. This is the first match Eddie Dennis has had in NXT UK where he didn't look oddly sized. Ashton Smith comes up to his height, and it was nice to see two men who were roughly the same height rather than one freak of nature and one ridiculously small victim. I'm choosing my words carefully there. Match-wise, again, a very, very enjoyable match. Dennis's swinging side slam on the apron looked crisp, looked really good. Ashton Smith's call sign gets annoying. If you've not seen this yet, be prepared for this to crop up regularly, and it's really, really starting to get on my tits now. It's like an alarm running out of batteries, and it just goes on and on and on. And can I just say, I'm sorry if I sound a bit bunged up this week. I think I'm coming down with something. I'm stumbling over my words here like a blind man looking for his favourite porno. So, excuse that. Getting back to it, a very, very nice springboard drop kick by Ashton Smith. Nice plancher, great leg lariat. It breathes life into this match when Ashton Smith is in control. And I think he's really come into his own. Putting aside the lukewarm crowd reaction he got when he came out, I think, and I've said this last week, I think this boy is something special. I said the complete opposite in our review of the second annual tournament. He looked like nothing in that. He looks like a star here, and I'm backing him to go all the way. Eddie Dennis wins the match with the next stop driver. It comes a little bit out of nowhere, and it feeds quite nicely, I think, into what we said last week and what I've been saying for a few weeks now, that these matches just seem to end without any real build-up or hype. It's something they need to work on. Thankfully, it's something they do work on throughout the episode. I would recommend this match. It's not wonderful, it's not going to change your life, it's not going to blow you away. It is very solid. That took us to the piss break of this episode. Joseph Connors versus Saxon Huxley. You've just heard Travis talk about their breakup in the tag team match in episode 10. I couldn't have cared less about this match if I tried. And I tried so hard, and I couldn't care less about it. In fact, you should have heard the groan that came out of my mouth when this graphic popped up as coming next. Unbelievable. Saxon Huxley, who cares? The British Barbarian, I don't give a shit about him. Joseph Connors, equally, I don't give a shit about him, but he's better than this. I know I've bashed Joseph Connors on this podcast over and over again at the beginning, but he is actually better than Saxon Huxley. He's better than a mid-card bore, which is what this was. It was an uninteresting house show match. It's the kind of match I'd expect to see if I paid money to go and see a live event that wasn't going to be televised. It was ugh. They tried to make it interesting, but I'm sorry. Too much of nothing. That's the best way I can describe it. Too much of nothing. Joseph Connors wins with the Don't Look Down. The finish was flat to the Ronda Rousey's chest. Awful. Sorry, I don't rate this match. I don't rate either man. And I wouldn't care if they cut them from the programme altogether. For me, they're not going anywhere. Enhancement talent. And you're going to hear that phrase a lot from me over the next few minutes. What isn't, and who isn't, I should say, enhancement talent, is the main event. Pete Dunne, Jordan Devlin for the WWE United Kingdom Championship. Stunning, stunning display. A lot of people won't like it. A lot of traditionalists won't like it. But fuck them. I'm a traditionalist and I loved it. You compare this to the main roster, it's night and day. Another great reaction for Pete Dunne. He's just knocking it out the park as far as popularity goes, as far as a top babyface goes. This is what a lot of wrestlers on the main roster should be. And, you know, they should look at Pete Dunne and learn. They really should. I was so hyped for this match, which won't come as a surprise to anyone who knows this podcast, because everyone knows I'm a massive Pete Dunne bitch. It's just me. I love the bloke. I haven't got behind anyone this much since maybe The Rock. And I'm casting my mind back now through the years. It's like, I think maybe The Rock in the early 2000s, late 90s, early 2000s. Something like that. I'm getting old. Jordan Devlin, however, what an athlete. Major contender. He feels like a huge threat. And to be honest, he could possibly be up to this point, knowing what's coming at TakeOver Blackpool. Jordan Devlin, I'm going to go out on a limb and say he is the biggest threat Pete Dunne has had to the title thus far. There was a big fight feel about it, and I'm convinced Jordan Devlin is going to be a great champion one day. It's not going to be anytime soon. I would back... See, this is where it gets difficult, because Travis loves Jordan Devlin. Travis thinks that Jordan Devlin is going to be, or would pick, I should say, Jordan Devlin to be the next champion. I think it's quite clearly going to be Joe Coffey with where they're going with that stable. But I'd say in the next year and a half, Jordan Devlin will have that title around his waist, and then the sky's the limit for him, as long as he doesn't get drafted to Raw. Match-wise, like I said, it was stunning. Believable arm work by Pete Dunne. I love that little one-arm pull-up suplex that Jordan Devlin does, where he just yanks him up and drops him. Wonderful stuff. Koji Clutch from the Spanish Fly. What a great move. Awesome transition. I loved all the Spanish Flies in this match. Standing Spanish Fly. The Spanish Fly from the ring steps to the arena floor. Sublime. The top rope Spanish Fly. Always impressive. I've said Spanish Fly too fucking much already. I'm going to stop saying it. All of them were wonderful. The last one from the top rope, but a wonderful near fall. And it's lovely to see that they're taking the time, not so much to sell the damage, because let's be honest, there's not a whole lot of selling here. Like, Pete Dunne took some damage and didn't sell some of it. You know, let's pull up those flaws. He sold the back perfectly. Didn't sell some other stuff he probably should have done. But it's nice to see wrestling as wrestling should be. Something else I loved about this match, and I could wax lyrical about it all night, but we've all got better things to do. No one more so than all of you good people. The little tease on the pin. I think it was the bitter end. Pete Dunne couldn't make the cover because of his back. Lovely selling on the back, by the way. I might have just criticised Pete Dunne's selling technique, but he sold the back beautifully. He just rolled over to put his arm over Jordan Devlin, and he wasn't there. He rolled over, and he kept rolling out the way. Loved that bit. Really, really nice. All the near falls in this match, they were killers. It was like every fucking near fall. If I hadn't have been such a mark, losing my voice now. If I hadn't have been such a mark and looked at all the results the night the tapings had finished, then I would have swore blind to you that Jordan Devlin was going to walk out of this with the title. That's how convincing it was. Moonsault into the triangle choke, perfectly done. And I'm loving that Pete Dunne has found a new submission technique, and yet it's not even a submission hold. I like how he bends the fingers back so much that people are forced to tap out. It's original, at least as far as I can remember. It's not a Boston Crab. It's not a Kirifuda clutch. It's not a sharpshooter or a figure four. Any of these traditional, or new in some cases, submission holds. It's literally tap out or I will break your fingers. Brilliant. It worked with Danny Burch. That was an organic ending. And as was this. And I hope it carries on, because what Pete Dunne is doing is just amazing. That was NXT UK episode 11. I would say one of the stronger episodes of the entire run so far. Episode 12, I think, would probably give it a run for its money. We will find out in a short while. I'm going to go and have a drink of water, because as you can hear, I'm clearly starting to lose my voice. After this short break, we will be back with NXT UK episode 12, and hopefully my voice will not be as rough as a badger's ass.
Hey Colin, did you get the cardboard cutout of Consul Kev?
Did I ever? It's amazing.
Oh, I think so too. I hate that guy. Kevin, what are you doing here?
Just eavesdropping on all the, the bad things you say about me. My usual Wednesday.
Oh, well, did you at least prepare for the Retro Gaming Podcast?
Absolutely not.
Oh, God, that figures. Alright, it's okay. I'll take it from here. Basically, we pick a theme every time, and we pick a number of games based on that theme. Just like our first episode, where it lasted forever and we talked about space games.
Yeah, and other good, all the mainstream systems and games you love, like the 3DO, the Atari Jaguar.
Oh, come on! Colin, you back me up here. The 3DO is awesome, right?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought we were friends. I mean, it's cool. Alright.
If you want to hear three guys talk about games that are bad because JD picked them all, and good games that Kevin picked, join us.
Who here wants to see a bunch of nerds talking video games with a little bit of anime thrown in there? Nobody? Just me? Damn!
Well, speaking of anime, Colin, we have an anime cast as well.
Yes, we do. All retro anime. Many of which I have never heard of myself. And I'm a weeb!
Very similar premise there. We pick a retro anime, at least 15 years or older, and we review it every episode. We also keep up on all the modern stuff, all the seasonal things from the year. Hey, Kevin, you just got back into wrestling, right?
I did.
Oh my god, did you know we also have a wrestling cast that just started?
I do now, because nobody tells me anything.
Ah, well, what do you think of the big dog these days?
He still sucks.
Well, that's good. Well, luckily, we just don't complain about WWE stuff. We also talk about a lot of the latest and greatest from the rising indie scene, New Japan, and Ring of Honor.
I like rings and honor.
Well, you should definitely listen to the Red Leaf Retrocast. We have such a wide range of topics, ideas to discuss, and just anything to review. It's fantastic, don't you guys think so?
It's alright!
Absolutely. And thanks again.
And on the Union Smack train rolls, welcome back. I am the Maniac Matt Tennant. I have been refreshed. My voice is a little less croaky than it was last time around. And now we're going to delve into NXT UK episode 12. Before we do, I would just like to say a huge thank you to you all. We know this episode has been longer than usual. We know you've had to sit through 3 reviews instead of 2. But believe me, it's necessary. It'll aid us down the line. So God bless you all for your patience. Episode 12. kicked off with a recap of the NXT UK Women's Championship tournament. We had a little excerpt from Rhea Ripley. We had a little excerpt from Toni Storm. And they were really, really building this tournament up by now. I love the way they've handled it. I love how important they've made it feel. And I will just say, something I also loved was when Toni Storm looked into the camera and went, "It's Tony time." Awful Australian accent I've just done there. Probably butchered it. Apologies to any Australians watching. But it sounded really dirty when she said it. And I do not doubt for one momentary, solitary second that soundbite will be replayed over and over again during many, many men's happy hours. As the show kicks in, we were shown Rhea Ripley and Toni Storm getting ready for their main event match. And again, just another little thing that adds to the hype, that adds to the importance. It wasn't just a match thrown on the end of the card. It was built and, hyped, and what a wonderful job they did. At least, in my opinion. People might think differently. Leave it in the comments or on Twitter if you do. Next up, we had what was meant to be Joe Coffey versus Sid Scala. We didn't get that. Instead, we got Joe Coffey versus Tyler Bate. I think everyone was thankful for that. Joe Coffey, such a star. Looks like one, acts like one, wrestles like one. My second favourite wrestler in NXT UK by far. I might not, and it pains me to admit this, but I might not be as mad as I thought I would be if Pete Dunne loses the title in January. I'll be mad, but at the same time, Joe Coffey is a talent that I want to see skyrocket. Just like Danny Burch, I think Joe Coffey has it. He's got the character, he's got the in-ring prowess, yeah. So I think Joe Coffey would be a great NXT UK / WWE United Kingdom champion. Sid Scala comes out at the beginning of this match in a little suit. Says he's not medically cleared. Looks a bit smug. A bit Drake Mavericky, if you like. The boos soon turn to cheers as he introduces his replacement. It's a nice build of the Gallus British Strong Style storyline. We're going to be getting a hell of a lot of that over the next month and a bit as we approach TakeOver. That is the main story heading into TakeOver. And I know a lot of people have complained on Twitter that NXT UK doesn't really have any solid stories that matter. Well, this is going to be one. This is going to be the solid story. And you know what? They could keep this going until WrestleMania season, if not longer. If British Strong Style were to win the first ever NXT UK Tag Team Championships, then the Coffey brothers, or Wolfgang and Mark Coffey, depending on the outcome of TakeOver, could easily challenge Moustache Mountain for them belts. And we've got an extension of that story. So, yeah, I'm really, really looking forward to this. I may be looking forward to seeing how this story plays out more than anything else in the entire company. Maybe that's because I've looked at all the spoilers and know, but you know what I'm saying. As a fan, I can't wait to sit and watch it. This match, fists from the beginning. You can tell it's going to be a physical altercation. It's punch, punch, punch. Joe Coffey looks like a tank rolling into Tyler Bate. It's great stuff. Some great counters. One series of reversals, a series of counters of the bop and bang. Brilliantly done. Loved that little bit of the match. Tyler Bate, we all know how good he is in the ring. I don't need to sing his praises anymore on this podcast. I still think he's missing something, but I do think, and I'll stop saying this every week because I'm boring myself saying it now, but I think he's finding it. I think this feud is bringing it out of him. I think being with Trent Seven more on television is aiding him because Trent Seven has got it. And I think by the end of this feud with Gallus, by the end of TakeOver Blackpool, I think Tyler Bate is finally going to have found it. The elusive it. Somewhat predictably, Mark Coffey and Wolfgang come out. Trent Seven hobbles to the ring to help Tyler Bate. A huge reception for Trent Seven, massively underrated star. Mark Coffey and Wolfgang get involved, somewhat predictably again. It all ends up in a big disqualification. I'm pretty sure the match was awarded to Tyler Bate, although I couldn't tell you because I didn't hear it over the fracas. Beatdown of British Strong Style / Mustache Mountain brings out Pete Dunne. The setup was perfect. Huge reaction for Dunne. And on we go. On we go with this brilliant feud. And I'm going to keep saying that because I know it's not going to let us down. I will say, however, before we move on to the next match, a little gripe that I do have with NXT UK, and I have sung its praises. Let's not pretend I haven't for the last 6 weeks, maybe longer. Is that I feel like matches like this, like massive main event caliber matches, tend to be rushed from the beginning because of television time. They're not given the chance to properly develop. A good match is quite often a slow burner. It starts off slow, it builds the tension, it builds the drama, and then it's just an all-out fest until the finale. And sometimes these matches get it arse about face. They get it backwards. They start out all go, and then quite often they run out of pacing. They run out of speed, and that lessens the interest, at least for me. I think, and I said this last week, the antidote, the remedy to that is to cut down the matches. Currently, we get in, on average, 4 matches per episode. And when you've got matches like Joe Coffey versus Tyler Bate, or Pete Dunne versus Jordan Devlin, or as this episode would also have, Rhea Ripley versus Toni Storm, in what was meant to be a massive final to crown the first ever NXT UK Women's Champion, I think less is more. We had 2 matches on this card that weren't needed. They were just there to exhibit the talent and to pad it out, and it was unnecessary. So, I think when you've got 2 huge matches that have to matter, they have to matter for the future and longevity of this brand, because it's what is going to carry NXT UK forward. When you've got that, just cut the other 2 matches out completely. You can put them anywhere else, okay? Just have the 2 most important matches on the card, because without giving you any spoilers, what was to come? Dan Maloney versus Ligero, and a tag team match between Grizzled Young Veterans versus Kenny Williams and Amir Jordan. That was, on estimate, I'd say 15 minutes for them matches combined. You could have divided that time, given it to the opening match and the main event, and they would have mattered more because we'd have got a proper build in them. This is why I'm so excited about TakeOver. It's because it's going to be 2.5, 3 hours. There's only 5 matches on the card, I believe, and they're all going to get a good 20 to 25 minutes proper build. You know, just proper build. We're going to be able to enjoy them. We're not going to have to worry that they're going to be rushed because of television time. It's live pay-per-view, of course it is, which means things will have to be cut if something runs over. But they're going to be properly built matches. And going back to my original point, because I sometimes wonder, you might have noticed, WWE and NXT UK need to allocate more time to the big bouts. Because right now, as good as they are, and as good as a reception as they're receiving, I don't think they're prospering as they absolutely could. And again, it's my personal opinion. You might disagree with me. That's fine if you do. But, let's have a proper discussion about this. Next up, we had Dan Maloney versus Ligero. And Dan Maloney, for me, falls directly with Amir Jordan and a few others into the jobber category. He's going nowhere. I don't care about him. I'm pretty sure you don't either. And if I'm being completely honest and critical, then for me, he ruined this match with Ligero. It was much slower than we're used to from a Ligero match. It was more drawn out. And I know what I'm saying contradicts everything I've just said about matches not being built enough. But sometimes with wrestlers like Ligero, they don't need to be. It's fine if you've got Ligero versus another Ligero type wrestler or character. But when you've got someone as boring and as inconsequential as Dan Maloney, then it's just a chore to watch. It's a right chore to watch. And during this match, I felt like Ligero needed to pull out his aerial assault to make it a tad interesting. And that it shouldn't be that way. You should feel that he should pull out his aerial expertise to complement a match, not just to save it. And that's what it felt like here. On the plus side, lovely springboard sliced bread by Ligero and very, very good springboard DDT. It wasn't an interesting match at all. The parts where Ligero was in control were fine. Apart from that, I'd skip this match. It was just filler. Talking of filler, next match on the card, tag team, Kenny Williams and Amir Jordan versus Grizzled Young Veterans, who, if you haven't heard by now, are James Drake and Zach Gibson. I will say here, Amir Jordan punching well above his weight. He is a first-rate jobber. They've packaged him with Kenny Williams to the detriment of Kenny Williams, I will add. He deserves much better than this. And Amir Jordan, I can't see him going anywhere. The crowd are cold on him. I'm cold on him. I'm sure you're cold on him as well. And he's just I don't want to say a stereotype, but he is. I said this a few weeks back on the episode that never aired, but if Amir Jordan got called up to the main roster, he'd be the third Singh brother in a fortnight. The hate chants for Zach Gibson begin before the match. They're always a highlight of a Zach Gibson match, apart from the action, obviously. But I can't say that here, because this match was as generic a tag team match as you could possibly hope for. All interest is lost when Amir Jordan gets in, and he spends far too long in the ring. Far too long. Not only that, he's allowed to kick out of things that other jobbers would not be allowed to kick out of. I know what they're doing. They're building Kenny Williams up for the hot tag so he can come in, he can flip about, and then get pinned. But it just doesn't work. The long periods of time when Amir Jordan is in the ring are dull. They're just dull. He's generic. You know, if a wrestler was a colour, he'd be white. That is Amir Jordan. And I'm not being racist, obviously, because of the obvious. He's just a bore. Just a bore. And you know what? When James Drake tagged in, Drake versus Amir Jordan, that is like nightmare scenario for me. Did not want to see it. Even, sadly, Zach Gibson couldn't make this match interesting. It went far too long. 10 minutes I clocked this in at. It should have gone 5. The Grizzled Young Veterans are heading to the tournament final at TakeOver for the vacant NXT UK Tag Team Championships. They should have been permitted to squash Williams and Jordan on this occasion to get them over as a real threat. They weren't. It was drawn out. Everything they did, Amir Jordan kicked out of. It looked absurd. And when Travis and others on Twitter say that NXT UK is Progress Light, it's got to be matches like this they're talking about. It was just, there was no interest whatsoever, and I have no idea what possessed them to put this on, other than to promote the upcoming doubles division, if you like. Do not watch this match if you haven't got time. If you're somebody like me who has to watch everything on NXT UK every week, then fine. Be warned, it's 10 minutes of your life wasted. If you're someone who just looks for the highlights, then you can skip this completely. 10 minutes of time wasted. They could have cut this and allocated the remaining minutes to the main event. Talking of the main event, Toni Storm, Rhea Ripley, to crown the inaugural NXT UK Women's Champion. Somewhat disgustingly, this went 13 minutes. It was only allocated 3 more minutes than that hideous tag team match. But that was probably necessity, because we saw an injury during this match, which I will get to in just a few. We began with Johnny Saint carrying out the NXT UK Women's Championship. Lovely championship, love the design. It's almost identical to Pete Dunne's title, which is, I mean, it's fine. And I get the equality thing, but if you want the women to stand out, then give them a title that doesn't look like the man's. Give them a title that doesn't look like the men's hand down title. It's the same with the main roster. It's the same with NXT. All the women's titles on every brand look like a poorer version of, or a whiter version, should I say, of the main men's titles. So I'd just like to see that changed. And, you might prefer it, but I just don't. They have learned with Johnny Saint, to their credit, not to let him talk anymore. And if he is going to talk, make it no more than a minute, because he's not great on the mic. The small speech the ring announcer gave, it further hypes the occasion, the match, what it's for. It's a nice little touch. I also very, very much like Toni Storm's entrance music. It's very Mighty Morphin Power Rangers in the way it starts and goes on. Big, big fan of that. I don't know who created that music, but, kudos to them. The crowd are fully behind Toni Storm here. And the matches all go from the beginning because of television time. They've got an allocated time to fit this all in. And I predict, as much as I enjoyed this, their match at TakeOver will just blow this out of the water because of, the 20 to 25 minutes they will be allocated. Toni Storm sells the back well to begin with. She wouldn't have a choice but to sell it throughout the match because, unfortunately, a real injury did occur. Skip back a few episodes to August, if you can find it. I'm not sure which episode it is, but we mentioned in the news that Toni Storm had suffered a back injury during this match on the actual taping. She was out for 2 months following this. The spot came from the backdrop on the apron. It caused her a severe-ish spine injury. She was out of action, like I say, for 2 months, stripped of the WXW Women's Championship because they feared she wouldn't be able to defend it. And she visibly struggled throughout this match. People will go, oh, that's brilliant selling. And it is. Toni Storm is a brilliant seller. We saw that at the Royal Albert Hall when she challenged Shayna Baszler for the NXT Women's Championship. I love her selling, but most of what you saw back-wise was real. From backdrop on the apron onwards, she was legitimately injured, and, plaudits to her for carrying on and doing what she did. She hit German suplexes on an injured back. That is how dedicated this girl is to the business and to entertaining us. So wonderful. And I hope to see her rewarded with a championship reign soon. But not too soon, because Rhea Ripley is an awesome heel. Other highlights from this match: very, very nice headbutt and bridge German from Toni Storm. But in the end, Rhea Ripley wins with the Riptide. Good series of exchanges leading to this. But I feel like if it hadn't been for the injury, maybe this would have actually gone another 10 minutes. It felt like it had been cut short by necessity. It's nice how they wound the injury into the match. Toni Storm, by all accounts, and from all reports I've read, walked out of the match. She didn't need to be carried, but was then sidelined for 8 weeks. The bit I didn't like came after the match, when Triple H and Johnny Saint came to congratulate Rhea Ripley. And this girl who has been, tearing through the women's division for weeks and weeks and weeks on end, with a face like a slapped arse and an attitude that would piss your granny off. She's all smiles and tears and hugs. And I understand that she's just literally made history, etc. But the character probably, for me, should have remained. You know what I'm saying? It wasn't in character. And I don't like that. I would have preferred her to stay in character. If you need to build the badass character, have her deck Triple H with the title. Anything. Just not smiles and hugs and all that saccharine bullshit. Because it really did not fit her character. And that's the only real gripe I had with that match. Episode-wise, I'd rate this a strong B+ because of the opener and the main event. Episode 11, I would rate, I'm going to be biased and rate it an A because of the Pete Dunne, Jordan Devlin match. And it really was a very, very good episode. Of the two, episode 11 is the one to watch. If you've only got time to watch one. And we're done. Thank you so much for listening once again. Travis will hopefully be back with us next week. Until then, you can catch me on Twitter at The Perfect Tenant. You can catch Travis on Twitter at The Hibiki TMD. You can buy our official merchandise at unionsmack.bigcartel.com. You will find the official Union Smack shirt, the official Hibiki TMD shirt, both on sale for Christmas. Really, really good prices, so get yourself over there before they go back up again. And you'll be able to buy my Undertaker book now, as you listen to this, from completelynovel.com, amazon.com or amazon.co.uk, wherever you are in the world, and very soon on our Big Cartel store at unionsmack.bigcartel.com, as I've already mentioned. Thank you very much for listening. It has been an absolute pleasure to have your company this week. And until next week, cheerio, mates.